Hey everybody, Ashwin here, back with another video. Today let's talk about weighted averages. Let's say you're solving a very difficult data puzzle. So there are different clues, but you know that certain clues are more important than certain clues, right? So that's where these clues have more weightage as compared to the other clues. So let's see how this concept of weighted averages can be used for a practical daily life example and also for much more complex cases as well. As usual, I'll start with some examples. Let's take an example of investments. Okay, so because that's our favorite topic, right? So let's say you have a sum of money, you decide to put 50% into equity, 30% into bonds, and 20% into real estate. Let's say the returns from them are about 14% from equity, around 4% from bonds, and about 3% from real estate. So overall, you want to see the average of how much your funds have grown this year. So it's 14, 4 and 3. So when you sum them up, it's 21. Do you think you should take the average of this, which is about 7%? Do you really think this is going to give you the right number? Let's probably take an example. So let's say you have a sum of 1 lakh. You decide to put 50,000 into equity, 30,000 into bonds and 20,000 into real estate. So like we discussed, equity has grown up by about 14%, which makes it about 7,000 of gain from equity out of 50,000. You can do the math. 50,000 into 14% is about 7. And the gains from bonds are 4%. 30,000 you've put into bonds, out of which 4% would give you a value of about 1,200 rupees, and your value in real estate, which is 20%, for which you would have got a 3% return, which is around 600 rupees. So when you sum them up, 7,000 rupees plus 1,200 plus 600. So that makes it 8,800 rupees. That's about 8.8% of 1 lakh. 8,800 rupees is 8.8% and not 7%. How do we actually derive at this number? That's because equity has a higher weightage. Let's see how to calculate this. So how do you calculate the weight? You just have to multiply the weightage. So the weightage here is the proportion of that element in this example. So here equity is about 50%. So it's 0.5 multiplied by 14%, that is 7, plus 30%, which is 0.3 multiplied by 4%, which is 1.2, plus 0.2 multiplied by 3, that is another 0.6. So when you add them up, it is 7 plus 1.2 plus 0.6, that gives you 8.8, right? So let's take another example. Let it be more simpler than this. So let's say you and your friend decide to rent an apartment in Bangalore, and the cost of that apartment is, it's a 2 BHK and you have to pay around 10k. I know you don't get 10k 2 BHKs anymore, but just for the sake of calculation, probably you can even scale it up to 1 lakh considering that it's Bangalore. So let's keep it at 10,000. And so there are two rooms. One is a small room and another is a big room. So you both fight on the big room. So then that's where you decide to use the weighted averages. How do you decide the person with the bigger room, how much does he pay, and the person with the smaller size room, how much does he pay? So you calculate the square feet of the room, and the bigger room has a 600 square feet area and the smaller room has a 400 square feet area. And then when you do the same concept of weights, how do you calculate weights? It's 600 divided by 600 plus 400 would be the weight for the bigger room, and for the smaller room it will be 400 divided by 400 plus 600. So the weightage for the first room, the bigger room, would be 0.6, and 0.6 multiplied by 10,000 is going to give you 6,000 rupees, and for the smaller room it will be 0.4 multiplied by 10,000, that's going to give you 4,000 rupees. It makes it easier to do the division. Let me also bring up another case for which I'll not discuss the solutions, but it's a slightly complicated one compared to these two. I'd leave it as a food for thought for your brain so that you can start exploring and then get into the advanced concepts. Not really advanced, but you need to apply yourself to solve this. It's a very simple example. You and your neighbor, you don't know each other, because if it's friends, the equation is different. They won't pay you, they won't share with you. But then let's say you don't know each other, but then you decide to share a cab because you're going in the same route. You have to travel 4 kilometers and your neighbor has to travel 6 kilometers. You take the same cab and your neighbor tells you that once he gets the bill, once he gets down, you can share. So the overall bill is 1,000 rupees. Now you have to decide how do you share between the both. I'll leave that to you. You can use the same concept of weighted averages. I'll leave the solutions in the comments in a week's time. I want you to just go about this, and if you want me to make a video on this, I'll love to make a video as to how to calculate this. And also if you want me to cover more cases, this is the same concept that's used in advanced cases like time series as well. So it's very good to understand these small concepts before we go to the big ones. Thank you. Tada.